Okay, I'm Costa. I'm currently working at Collibra as a senior software engineer in test. I've been there nearly a year now. So I'm going to talk about end-to-end testing really, and a lot of the common challenges that I've faced throughout my career. I've kind of broken it down into like 3 case studies from Sky Bet, and where I am now, Collibra. Very few places get it right, and there's quite a lot of stigma attached to it, how it can slow development down and things like that. So I'm going to talk about how we kind of overcome these problems and the kind of the resistance that we had. So there's the agenda. Brief talk about what end-to-end testing is and some of the stuff there. So we'll quickly go through. I think everyone here probably will know what end-to-end testing is. Yeah, so I won't go into too much detail, but just in case there was anyone that didn't, it's basically, in the context of this talk, it's testing the full black box of the system essentially, right? So from the interactions of like a user on the UI, thinking about the user journeys, and not thinking at all around the like internals of the system. I won't go into too much detail because you all know about that. So we're going to talk about practices and principles now. And these are just a few of what I kind of go to. So ownership. I like to create a culture where testing becomes everyone's responsibility. This reduces the bottlenecks and allows testing to be treated as first-class citizen from the beginning. I like to think long-term as well. So like when choosing frameworks, like utilize the skills of your team. Don't isolate yourself by choosing like a framework because you're good at a particular language. Like look at your team, look at the skills in your team, and look at what languages your application's written in, and go with that, even if it puts you out of your comfort zone. And I can give you examples of where that's not been done, and you'll see soon. Fail fast. You've probably heard about shift test left and all that sort of stuff. So end-to-end tests should help prevent bugs from like getting anywhere near the main branch really. So we should be running them on PR and getting that feedback. And again, I'll go into lots of reasons why that's better than having a much later feedback loop within that. And then collaborate. Like developers and testers, when they collaborate, like great stuff happens. Obviously testers collaborate with developers all the time, but I think it's good when you reverse that as well, when you want to work on the testing, and you can really do some good results and improve the testability of your application when you collaborate with the developers and come up with some really good ideas to make the tests as resilient as they can be. So my first case study is Sky. I worked at Sky, 7-8 years ago. Has anyone got, I don't know if anyone's got Sky Mobile, but that's, if you have, we built the sales application. So the shop, basically from the ground up. And like end-to-end testing within that team played like a fundamental part of our like test process, right? So the problem statement, this is for a while, like end-to-end testing were kind of slowing us down. We was like a really large team. There was a lot of money getting pumped into this program. It was like quite an aggressive program. There was a lot of pressure on the team to kind of build this, so we had like deadlines and stuff. And end-to-end testing, how can we build a more efficient automation pipeline, basically? Because it literally was slowing the team down from delivering, doing releases and getting the work out. So these are some of the problems that we had, right? So we had 2 repositories essentially. The front end code was in the front end. The end-to-end tests were in a separate repository. It was obviously the front end was written in JavaScript, and the end-to-end tests were written in Java, which isn't really ideal if you want like your JavaScript engineers to kind of own the test with you as well. It wasn't too bad at Sky because we did have like Scala backend engineers, so we did have like quite a bit of Java knowledge, but you don't really get backend engineers as much interacting with the tests as you do the front end, really. That was one problem. I've touched on the separate pipeline. Obviously, the front end pipeline If that passed all its checks, it would then trigger a separate pipeline where the end-to-end test lived. And if that passed, it would then feed back. So quite a lot of unnecessary complexity there. And as I say, like, the end-to-end test did not run at PR level, which means the developers could merge the work and then afterwards be told that there's a problem, unless they manually ran the tests. So some did, some didn't. So for those that didn't, and if there was a failure, they've already moved on to another ticket, you'd have to go back to them and say, look, there's a problem. You either need to update the tests or there's a bug, basically. So just that disruption slows down development, and you know, it's better to give that feedback earlier. So what did we recommend? This was a recommendation. So move the end-to-end test to the front-end repository and run on a single pipeline. So in doing that, why? Yeah. So we had some well-respected members of the team that didn't want us to do that, essentially. My guesses are that they've probably been burned in the past, essentially, right? They've probably had flaky tests that take a long time to run, and on a PR, we need, you want your PRs to be quick, you want them to be reliable, you want to get work shipped out. So you can understand that, right? So how do we solve that? And there's lots of things that we did. I literally spent hours and hours and hours with developers, like improving the quality of the tests, rather than new tests, making them resilient. We was using a Selenium at the time, a BDD framework called Serenity. It was, like I said, it was written in Java. And I don't know if anyone's used Selenium, but like, it's stale element exceptions, and especially when you're building React applications and the DOM's constantly changing, single page apps, it just doesn't handle it very well. And the amount of time and effort we had to spend to make it resilient was hard, but we did it. And because of all of that work, we managed to kind of get sort of like these tests and get these people that were against it to at least trial it. And that's what we did. And obviously moving a Java project into a JavaScript project isn't something we'd ever done before. Doesn't feel right, but we did it. And yeah, it worked. So to go against the resistance, what we did was we agreed the test would be non-blocking to begin with. Yeah? Just to build up confidence with the team. And if we find that the tests are passing all the time, then after 2 months, 6 weeks, whatever it is, we'll make them blocking. And it did. It worked. And what it meant was we had a single repository now, and if developers were creating like feature branches and doing the work, they were getting that feedback straight away, and they could fix it on the same branch. That's important. Yeah. So they don't have to context switch. They don't have to go check out a Java repository. They can actually fix it on the same branch as the change that's going in, and it stops errors and bugs going into the main branch. And like I said, efficiency, yeah, we've reduced the number of pipelines, and like I said, we've got faster feedback. So there's less disruptions, and that efficiency was massively increased. So yeah. So now I'm going to talk about Skybet. So I worked for Skybet. I joined Infinity Works a few years after that, actually, after the zone. So yeah, it's quite a little bit of a different context on this one. So this was very different. The problem statement with joining Skybet is how can we improve our end-to-end tests so that they can start adding value to the team. Now, when I joined Skybet, the tests were written in Python. The tests were in a separate pipeline, and they were non-blocking, and the tests weren't maintained. Like, when you looked at the pipeline, you had to scroll back 8 months to see when it last passed. Yeah. And I literally spent the first week trying to, like the same effort that I put in at Sky, trying to make them resilient. And you fixed one issue, and then you got to the next issue, and I was just like, it's like a full-time job. Like, I literally I got the team together within like week 2, and I said, look, let's just bin the tests and we'll start again. And everybody was like, we're in agreement on that. So we carefully picked a new test framework between the team. And we agreed to rewrite the tests in a language widely used by the team in a carefully chosen framework. So after doing a POC, we chose Test Cafe at the time. By doing that, we consolidated our languages because the backend was written in JavaScript. The front end's written in JavaScript. Now the end-to-end tests are written in JavaScript. It's in the same repo. And again, similar to Sky, non-blocking to begin with. How many weeks was it? It was not many weeks before we got it, 2 weeks, and made it blocking. And never looked back. Ownership. All the developers that were working on the tests was maintaining the tests. I even went on to work for another team, for the iOS team, and I was there for a year. And the developers, without a tester in their team, were still maintaining the tests because it was easy. And that's just proof that I was really proud of that they didn't need a tester there to do that. It was proactive and it was brilliant. And even to this day now, I think that's still going strong. But we did face a few challenges, not as many as at Sky, I guess, but one of the principals that was on the team at the time strongly disagreed. For the similar reasons that other people disagreed with at Sky. They thought that, maybe because they've seen the Python tests and how unreliable they were, how flaky they were just nervous about doing this. But like I said, we'd addressed everything. We'd rewritten the test from the ground up to address all of the concerns that the Python tests couldn't do. And again, it was Selenium. But everyone else on the team were unanimous. Everybody wanted us to do this. And one thing I would say is the guy that he had objections to this, right? But he was leaving in a couple of weeks at the time. So we didn't have really enough time to kind of educate him to bring him round. But if I was leaving a team, I would be more as an advisory person. I wouldn't have such strong opinions. I'd be like, listen, I'm leaving the team, but I'll attend. And if you want my advice, I'll give you it. Yeah, and that's what he should have been doing really, because it wasn't really, I don't think it was helpful at all, was it? Mike was in my team, so I keep looking at Mike. Yeah, we just kind of cracked on as soon as he left and never looked back. These are some of the benefits. So I think I've touched on this already because I'm waffling. The pipeline efficiency, we've now gone from 2 pipelines to 1. Everything is now embedded in the front-end pipeline, so that doesn't have to then call other pipelines. So we've managed to delete loads of code there. I've already said that everything is now JavaScript. The improvements, like I told you, I literally can go work on help other teams with problems. iOS had their own problems because I don't know if anyone's worked with Apple and doing iOS releases. It's not pleasant. It can take days to get a release through and approved by Apple. And if you introduce bugs, then it can take days to correct those bugs, right? So I managed to spend a lot of time with the iOS team to do contract testing and things like that. And I just simply wouldn't have had time if I was firefighting all the time with the Selenium tests and stuff. Yeah, and fail fast, fix fast, exactly that. Developers could find issues and fix them without having to check out anything else or wait until they've moved on to something else to be told that it's broken. So, case study 3. This is where I currently work. This is nuts, right? I'll tell you why. Problem statement. How do we reduce the amount of time our teams are blocked when the pipeline is read? So we've currently got 12 teams all contributing to the end-to-end tests in the end-to-end test repo, and there's still 6 teams waiting to add their tests because they're not ready yet. So we've got the front-end repo is where it is, and that's managed by the central front-end team, and then I lead a team that manage the end-to-end tests in a separate repo. So if there's any issues with any of the tests, they have to then fix the test in the other repo. And I don't know how you do that. there's always going to be something that fails, right? It's going to be the application that's going to fail and then test fail and you fix it. So then you're going to have to run at least one of them twice before you can get them in. It's just slow. It's really bad. And like I said, all of these problems that I'm telling you about, they're common, but they're all common, but they're all slightly different. Slow feedback, exactly what I'm saying. They've already merged the work. And like I said, this is the big point here. This team's blocked. If any one of the 12 teams that are currently writing tests and don't run their tests, end-to-end tests, on their PR level manually, they're going to block the other teams. And they get annoyed. And then they come to me, and then I start flapping because there's nothing we can do about it. And I think this diagram kind of explains it a lot, right? So that's like, all them lines are like chaos, and that's the chaos that we have to deal with. Like I said, so the front end's over here, managed by the central front end team, end-to-end tests are over there, managed by my team. And these are all of the product verticals within the business that are all adding tests. I'm trying to get the tests in here. I'm getting resistance. I'll talk about that in a minute. So, the pipeline was red for ages and ages. Like, downtime was like practically all day, every day. We'd get it green for 30 minutes and you get loads of party parrots in Slack, and then 30 minutes later it's red again. And literally, it's literally slowing everyone down. So I got all the stakeholders involved, sent them a big message to say, look, this is not like long term, we can't continue like this, it's not good. So I came up with some proposals, knowing that they'd get rejected. I knew it going into it based on my past experience, right? But at least it got us talking. And the central front end team come back with a counter proposal, which is proposal 1, which is currently live now. My proposal is to move the end-to-end test into the front end repo, like proposal 3, right? Proposal 2 is kind of the next best solution, which would be still a separate repo, but at least it gets triggered on PR from GitHub Actions from the front end. But I'm all about negotiating and trying things out, and if it doesn't work, we can go back. At least then we've tried somebody else's solution. I just think shouting the loudest doesn't always work. I've learned that the hard way, so I've taken that on board. So currently what we're doing now is, if the tests fail, they'll get blocked from going into what we call the aggregator, which is the place where it all gets built, and from there it can go through to release testing, which means that the developers have to act on their work, because even though the front end version's like bumped and it's gone through all their front end checks and stuff, failed at ours, our quality gate there will then stop it from going further through the pipeline, right? But they've still merged the work at the end of the day. They've still moved on to something else. So it's all that counter proposal is doing is speeding up the time that they're going to fix it. They've still got to stop what they're doing, essentially. That's been live about 2 weeks, so it's ongoing. So this is quite fresh. This is why I'm doing this talk today, really, because it's quite a big topic. So we're going with proposal 1, and I'm going to give it everything I can to make it work. And within our team, what can we do to make it work, essentially? And one of the improvements I did last week was this team's affected. Like I said, we've got 12 teams at the moment, and it's going to grow. So within Jenkins, we generate like a JSON file, and we have all of the teams that have got ownership. So each test scenario's got like a test owner, and from that we can like link it to like a Slack handle. And as soon as a test fails in Slack, any teams that are notified, it could be multiple teams, they'll get immediately notified, yeah? Which means that hopefully they should act on it straight away and try and fix it. Because before this, no one was acting on it. It was literally me like scouring Slack, seeing what team you had to contact. It was a nightmare. It really was. It was hard. And I think this proposal is better than what we've got. I'll admit that. It is better. Things have got a little bit better, but I think it could be a lot better. And that's it. I don't know. How long did I talk for there? Is that all right?